we're sitting on the second floor of Little Saigon Cafe in Chinatown. That's owned by Sam Sam. Sam helped fight the baseball stadium. When this happened, he had just opened this restaurant like a month, coming out of COVID where this community was hit really hard. Sam decides, okay, I'm going to try to open this restaurant. This is the second floor of the restaurant. He was opening it as a karaoke room, like so you could rent the space out and sing. And you'll see that there's TVs already set up on each end of the room and a karaoke machine over here and everything. But you'll also see this is not set up to be a karaoke lounge, because when this happened, he said, we're going to need a place to organize from. And my restaurant's in a good place, so I'm going to keep this room for the arena. And, you know, and it'll be for the arena fight until we win.
It means a lot to me, this Chinatown. It's my home. Look like I'm born here, but I'm not born here. But look like I'm born here now, that's it. You know. Better than my own town, Vietnam, to me. That's it, that's way. It's very mean to me a lot, this Chinatown, believe me. I come here when I'm 21 years old. It's very important to keep our culture from many, many generations, okay, forever. So that's what I'm fighting for.
Parcel of who they are.
So let's assume this thing does get built. What's going to happen here? What kind of problems is this going to cause?
Okay, so 6 years of construction, where
right down the street from where we already know.
Right, massive street closures. How long did it take you to get parking here today?
Yeah, it took a while. Yeah.
Okay, this is a normal day. No big event happening. This is just a normal Friday in this area, right? What do you think it's going to be like when 10th Street, Market Street, and 11th Street are blocked because of construction? For 6 years.
Yeah.
And then what do you think it's going to be like when they have these events where they compress 18,000 people coming in within a 1 hour period and then leaving all at the same time? Well, right now, 70% of people that go to games drive in. And there is a culture in Philadelphia in that stadium district. And it's a Philly thing, right? It's like you go down, you tailgate, you go, you know where to park. Everybody has their favorite parking area. Everybody knows where to park because it's closest to whatever. You don't change at generation. That's a generational pattern. Right, like that's not just, oh, they built it last year and now we're doing something different. This is like generations of Philadelphians have grown up with this. With absolutely no study whatsoever, they've declared that 70% is dropping to 30%. There's nothing that they can give as reason other than, oh, you know, mass transit stops here. Well, mass transit stops in South Philly too. So, like, what the heck? They also say their own traffic study that we actually had to do a Freedom of Information request to get because they don't make their information open. They shoehorned this in by A, saying they're going to drop from 70% to 30%, B, that every car driving in is going to carry 3 people, therefore they won't need as many cars. C, that a whole bunch of those cars are going to come in early to go out for dinner. So that spreads it out. And D, that a whole bunch of people are going to be taking Uber, so they're not going to need parking. So they put all that together, and then they produced this traffic report that says, okay, it's going to work. Like, how could you even believe this? So we just did a down and dirty stupid thing, right? Like 3,000 cars, right? How long is a car? You know, give or take, with room in the front and the back, you're driving at about 10 feet, right? How many cars in a block? You know, we figured that out. how many, we divide it by 3,000, we're talking about 12 miles of cars. 12 miles coming into this area.
Down these little streets.
One lane streets.
Yes.
Going into parking garages that have a single solitary entrance and egress. I mean, like, what I don't understand is how the city accepts these things as that, like they find these types of things acceptable.
Right.
This is not a development project and proposal that's just about the details of whether it'll make money or not. To my mind, not about the question of whether an arena should be built in the old-fashioned district or not. When arenas are placed in or adjacent to downtowns or in neighborhoods, they change the real estate market. They change the logic of the real estate market around them. That is not something cities can very effectively manage or mitigate against. The people in our planning and development department, in PIDC, in other city agencies, they know this. This is not a secret or some very obscure technical knowledge. We know, both from the logic of real estate economics to the history of downtown Chinatowns across North America, that when arenas or stadiums or convention centers, but especially arenas and stadiums, which bring many thousands of people at one point, right, to the place, and then they go away for most of the rest of the time, right? That is an incredible disruption, right, especially to neighborhood small business, as well as people who live there, but especially to the viability of small businesses, which most typically operate on a quite small margin. And so some disruption, right, to customers' ability to park nearby or just to get there at certain hours, even on a few nights a week, can mean the difference between, right, staying open and having to close. That they can no longer afford their rent, or they can't keep their business open because they're just not getting enough traffic, right? Or people don't feel comfortable there coming when there are, you know, huge crowds going in and out. Right? Those little disruptions really can and will mean the closure of businesses and institutions that are, you know, crucial to the Chinatown, you know, community and are the draw, right? That draw Asian Americans of all sorts from around the city and around the region to Chinatown, who really are, you know, the core constituency who sustain those businesses in so many ways, right? And who, even if they don't live in Chinatown, are very attached to Chinatown grocery, cafes and bakeries, restaurants, community associations, elder care, churches and schools. And once some of those start to go, people's reasons to you know, support and, you know, keep coming to Chinatown fall apart, right, and go away. And this isn't just some made-up scenario that I'm imagining. I'm describing what happened to Washington, D.C. I'm describing what's happened to what happened to Seattle to a great extent. I'm describing what happened to virtually every Chinatown in the United States and Canada. The downtown historic Chinatowns were either completely wiped out in the early 20th century by sort of city beautiful boulevards and civic center planning, or moved out of the center of the city, right, by coalitions of businessmen and government officials who, in a very openly racist way 100 years ago, said, we don't want Chinatown down here, we want to push it out.
Philadelphia is at a crossroads, right? Yeah, far from the only city where this is happening. We may be even, yeah, like one of the later big cities to experience it. The arena vision was like announced and brought, you know, forward in the public without any kind of conversations with the Chinatown community before it was brought publicly, and that's the same thing that's happening with the former oil refinery land. The arena is kind of promising to be a good neighbor, and like there's all this like, lip service in trying to like assuage the concerns by saying, oh, we're going to be a good neighbor, and that's happening absolutely with the former refinery land. There's a ton of PR language and lots of feel good stuff about being a good neighbor, when Philadelphians are very clearly defining, here's what it would mean to be a good neighbor, XYZ, and that just seems to have no bearing on what these corporations are saying being a good neighbor is. And you actually, as the, massively wealthy entity, whether the 76ers or Hilco Redevelopment Partners, you don't get to actually define what being a good neighbor means in Philadelphia. The Philadelphians get to define that. So I think that's like another parallel, as well as what I've seen about the kind of fast tracking of the arena. I'm seeing these big development projects that are going to have massive consequences for Philadelphians and the city as a whole being just forced through at like breakneck speed. That also absolutely happened with the, deforesting of Cobb's Creek. Is just out of nowhere, boom, suddenly all the trees are gone. And so it's like, the developers and corporate class in Philly are just feeling like we got to do all this as fast as we can before Philadelphians can get organized, and before it is revealed really what we're doing.
Chinatown is a place that has existed for a very long time. So it's very important that people are able to live their lives, right, without having to be uprooted and just kicked out because somebody with money says so. You know what I mean? Like that's just it's just not right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's not just Chinatown, it's everywhere. Everywhere is very important, you know what I mean? And Chinatown being working class people and people who live there and people who raised their generations there, why they gotta move?
Yeah.
Because the same thing is happening in my neighborhood. We want y'all to move without saying it. Like, get out.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with them. We want y'all to move. Like, just get out because we want an arena, right? So it's not just Chinatown. Everywhere is very important.
When you've got such a clear public consensus like the folks organizing Chinatown have been able to, develop and yield with like over 90% of Chinatown residents saying they don't support the arena, that's such a powerful public mandate that if our government is working correctly, if our democratic government in Philadelphia, the first city in, the United States, we've got the Liberty Bell smack dab. If this stuff is working right, this government that America is so proud of, folks in City Hall it would be a no-brainer about what should happen. And actually there shouldn't be any more action that's required, by the people, because we're out here still trying to pay our bills, live our lives, and what more do we need to do to show what our opinion is on something? So there's such a strong public opinion on this. I really hope government will just do its job rather than bending to the money.
Chinatown is like a place where you can go and feel like it's okay to be Asian. I mean, straight up. We came through when it was open field day on Asians, right? Elders come here and feel like it's the one place in the city where they can walk down the street and speak their language and not be attacked. Kids come down here and feel like, oh, I see other people that look like me. Families come here to say, I can get the things I need to continue these cultural traditions. I think for young people, especially this Chinatown, I think we are consciously building generations of young people who have ties in this community and who will fight for it. We opened a charter school, an elementary school. Those kids have memories and relationships that are tied to this community. And so they will come back and fight. Like we have the Mid-Autumn Festival. We use 350, 400 at least high school volunteers every year for that festival. they have memories of spending their time here, building that festival. So I think for young people, we are a community that consciously nurtures love for this community among our younger generation. That's why, like, my daughter, I have a picture of her. She was 6 years old when they tried to put that casino in, and she's standing there with her best friend who was 5, you know, holding up a no casino sign. They're now 20 and 21, and they are the organizers, founders, and leaders of Students for the Preservation of Chinatown. So they grew up knowing that this was their responsibility. And when this fight happened, they said, like, we need to take a piece of this, and they took the student organizing piece. And, you know, are learning through doing what it looks like to resist. What are the things that we pass down? Just as much as, like, what food do you eat at this? Like, it's sort of like, what are the elements of a protest? Well, you got to have chants, you got to have banners, you got to build alliances and build coalitions, and, like, those are things that we teach our young people because we have to.
I feel that's my home. That small village, everybody knows that. So most people need 80% I know them. Right? And it's like, how you feel it's how you feel if you live in a neighborhood, in a community, everybody know you know everybody. That's a real community, all right? It's not like hi. No, it's not. We talk in the street. When we see you I didn't see you for a month. I said, how you doing? We say, hey, we talk to each other in the street. That's it. That's how good the community is. And second thing,
Your communities, you invest in the people that make their homes here. Not in things for billionaires and one-timers to come in and leave. Like, this used to be considered a city of neighborhoods. Now it's the city of developer gentrification. And it's happening all over the city. So for Chinatown, we see this as like the line in the sand, because we see what they've been doing to other communities across the city. It's heartbreaking. And the thing about this project is that it's so big and it's all at once. It's so obvious, like, because usually gentrification is like a slow trickle. This is like a boom, you know, like you're gone. Right. That I think it does resonate across the city with communities all over who are seeing what this is doing to their communities. And for us
to keep our culture from many generations, okay, forever. That's what I hope. So that's what I'm fighting for. I said, you know, not just for Chinese, it's for the Asian community. For Chinatown is not just for one anecdote. For all Asian people. People know we don't want it, they don't want it. Okay, Toshi don't want it. Okay, and the developer mislead every single citizen of Philadelphia.